From the endless sights of pine trees in the mountains to the clean, crisp air off the coast, it's safe to say Oregon is best known for its natural beauty. The scenic hikes, beautiful seasons, and diverse wildlife define our state. But some of those staples could be changing. Welcome to a special edition of Oregon News. I'm Jessie Price. Today's show steps away from our traditional news broadcasts and instead focuses on Oregon as a whole and its dynamic environment. For the past 7 weeks, our reporters have gone out all through the state of Oregon to find and share the stories of Mother Nature. Come with me and we'll see what Oregon has in store for us. Oregon is home to incredible landscapes and trails for visitors and residents to enjoy. But with too many visitors on these trails, it's creating a little bit of a problem. Emma, you've been working on this story for a few weeks now. It sounds like there are just a few too many people and not enough upkeep. What can we do?
Well, yeah, Jessie, the forests in Oregon are getting more crowded, and with more visitors on trails like these comes more damage to the wilderness. To deal with the damage, the Forest Service introduced an initiative in April to address the growing number of visitors in Central Oregon. The Central Cascades Wilderness Strategies Project will address increased visitation in 5 main wilderness areas: Mount Washington, Three Sisters, Diamond Peak, Mount Jefferson, and Waldo Lake. Dr. Troy Hall is a forest ecosystems professor at Oregon State University. She says that increased visitation has led to significant damage to the environment.
So we are seeing actually a really interesting change in use that I would say for, decades, if not hundreds of years, use really stuck to certain kinds of destinations and travel.
In a 5-year environmental analysis, the Forest Service found unprecedented visitation growth. In the Three Sisters Wilderness, for example, there was a 181% increase in visitation. The damage caused by humans to the wilderness is concentrated around a few areas. Jean Nelson-Dean, the public affairs officer for the Deschutes National Forest, says that this concentration aggravates the damage to the environment.
There's 48 trailheads within the Three Sisters. 56% of our use is on 5 trailheads. We want to, encourage people to go to those other trailheads, to have other entry points into the Three Sisters.
The Forest Service is proposing a range of varying permit systems to disperse trail traffic and encourage visitors to utilize other entrances to the wilderness. Possible systems range from paid permit requirements only in high-use areas to a more extensive system that would require paid permits in all 5 wilderness areas. Nelson-Dean says the purpose of the permits is not to discourage visitors.
It's not really about the fee itself, it's really about the landscapes. And one of the things we're really trying to encourage, and I guess what's really important for you to note, or what I want folks to focus on a little bit, is we want to increase use across time and space.
The Forest Service asked for public comment throughout each step of the Central Cascades Wilderness Strategies Project, and they received it. After 4 public forums in different Central Oregon cities, the Forest Service received over 1,000 public comments. The responses have been varied. Equestrian organizers fear limited wilderness access.
I'm actually not too thrilled about the decision because, as a cross-country rider, it just makes it a lot harder to find actual courses and be able to be permitted in the forest, and that's where we do all of our cross-country jumping, so it's actually pretty hindersome on us.
However, other regular visitors welcomed protective measures. Nick Sanders is a University of Oregon outdoor program employee.
I think it's a great thing. It's totally going to affect anyone and everyone who wants to do anything from a day trip to a week long to whatever. I think it's going to have huge impacts, but it's good. They need to start regulating that and keeping it nice.
Nelson-Dean acknowledges that many of the details still need to be worked out, including the cost. The Forest Service will release its final decision by the end of this month, but this may not be the end. The processes will once more be open to the public, and if public support prevails, the Forest Service will implement the permit system in the summer of 2019.
I really feel that we were given the gift through folks back in 1964. We were given this gift of designated wilderness. It's not something that once you lose it, you can't really get it back again.
With this new system, the Forest Service hopes to maintain access to Central Oregon for visitors today and for generations to come. Reporting for Oregon News, I'm Emma Childs.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly.
Lights out. Good night.
And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Other areas facing overpopulation are coastal towns like Gearhart, but this time it involves elk. Avita, what's going on in Gearhart?
Well, Jesse, their habitats have been changing a lot recently, so the elk have been moving to Gearhart in search of some food.
Okay, and how do the locals feel about this?
Well, the opinions are pretty mixed right now, but some locals say that they don't mind them.
Gearhart, a quaint coastal town in Oregon, is loved by its locals for its pristine beaches and quiet streets. Part of the charm is a herd of majestic elk that have long roamed the town. But the elk population has recently become a problem for some. The size of the elk herds have tripled, growing from 30 to 90 head. As the herd grows, the elk are showing up in places you wouldn't normally expect.
I've encountered them also in the downtown area here in the streets, and it's pretty hard to avoid them.
That's Jack Taylor. He's been a resident of Gearhart for 15 years and is one of many locals who have encountered the elk.
I've walked through elk herds in the evening. I just slow down. I've even sung a song just so they know I'm there. But you can't get close to them without thinking, wow, I hope these guys are okay with me today.
Connie Kozner, the manager of Fitzgerald's Home and Garden Shop in Gearhart, told Oregon News that the elk have come close to her shop multiple times. She says the elk do not disturb her, but is very cautious when they are around. Don Whitaker is the Ungulate manager for Oregon's Department of Fish and Wildlife. He says the elk are moving to places like Gearhart because habitats are changing.
Public grounds dominated by federally owned properties in the BLM and the National Forest are not managed as intensively in the recent decades or so. That's led to a canopy closure, and they need light for the grass to grow, so there's less forage for elk on the publicly owned ground.
While some people are not bothered by the elk, others worry for their safety.
They're so large, I'm convinced that, you know, if I catch them in a bad mood or a mother protecting, a calf, I don't know. I don't know what will happen. There's only so much interaction we can probably have before disaster.
With the elk becoming a problem, Gearhart and the state of Oregon are looking for solutions. Recently, the state wildlife officials introduced a possible pilot program to control the urban deer population, which also includes culling elk herds. Culling is when wildlife officials use lethal reduction to decrease and control herd population. Cities that consider elk a problem can petition the Department of Fish and Wildlife to allow culling. Meat that come from these animals go to charity.
We have to make some compromises, and so do they.
If the elk have diseases, these diseases will be transported. Additionally, they are not part of the natural ecosystem of the place they are transported, and so they can disrupt the equilibrium. Elk that are tame are likely to find their way back to people, where they will become a problem again.
I want the elk to stay, but I think there's a limit to how big the herd needs to be. And I think it's all right if it does get thinned out.
But with various solutions being discussed, Whitaker says relocation can cause more problems.
Anytime we encounter these types of situations where we have wildlife in conflict with people, and it seems to be ubiquitous across species, we tend to see a broad mix of values and opinions.
Many people have expressed their opinions across social media and to other news outlets.
Strongly held values that it is wrong to kill them for any reason, versus values that, I want to be the one that solves that problem, or I want to hunt those.
The future of the elk isn't certain, but everyone agrees they are an important part of the Gearhart community.
It's really something. It's majestic to see these things up close. They're so large, and they have such a beauty to them.
For Oregon News, this is Avita Garza.
I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it. My support team never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew who I could become as a person. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
With the warm summer approaching, more and more people are becoming concerned with the threat of drought after a relatively dry winter. It had been 3 years since Governor Kate Brown declared any kind of drought when she did back in March for Klamath County. Mark, you and your team had a chance to chat with some people who were directly and indirectly affected by these droughts. What'd we find out?
Well, Jesse, whether or not you're in a county that's in a drought right now or just experiencing less rain than normal, the potential hot, dry summer causes some concern. Klamath was the first county put on the state emergency list because of the drought, but since then, Grant, Harney, and Lake counties have been added to that list. We take a look at some of the problems these counties and others might face, and also look into some of the solutions to this issue. Much of Oregon may be feeling the effects of drought this summer. By March, Klamath County had only 45% of its normal snowpack. The first casualty, ski resorts having to end their season early and closing. But other areas in Klamath are being affected too. Low water supply threatens the lives of a number of species of fish in the area. The Klamath tribe survived off these fish for decades. Now, the fish are endangered and the entire tribe is limited to harvesting just 2 fish per year for ceremonial purposes. Don Gentry, chairman of Klamath Tribes, says this drought could potentially force even more species of fish into extinction.
Of course, the drought in the drier conditions that we've experienced in the last years are problematic. There's less water in the lake and rivers and streams for our fisheries, so it does have an impact.
Gentry says they want to protect the fish, but they also want to protect the people of the community and the history of their tribe.
It's more than just food. It's what we do. So if the fish die, the people die. So very important to us, and even though we've been without them for many years, they need to be there, and they're a big part of our life.
Gentry adds that unless something changes, there's nothing stopping the continued extinction of fish species. Even counties that have escaped the drought designation are facing low water conditions. Marissa Wallazin, the chief meteorologist at KEZI in Eugene, says there hasn't been enough rain here.
We haven't actually had rain all the way through May. We've only picked up about 1/4 of an inch, and usually we see 2 1/4 inches of rain. So we're actually heading into our dry months, unfortunately, with not as much rain as we need.
But Wallazin also notes that droughts come and go in a cyclical manner and that they aren't necessarily becoming more common. In Marion County, Louis Casimir has dealt with cyclical droughts year after year. Casimir has been a dairy farmer in Salem for 25 years and has seen what a severe drought can do. He almost lost his farm in 2008. Now he's working towards more sustainable farming. 3 years ago, he built his own water reservoir. The water is filled with microbes, which he says is great for irrigation. Casimir says the nutrients help the soil become stronger and retain more water.
Now we're getting into the microbes in the soil, which is kind of exciting, kind of new. And more people are jumping into this thing.
He's also experimenting with a 10-acre plot of corn silage, where he's mixed an additive into the soil to help the roots grow, become more efficient, and allow him to use less water. But dairy cows don't live on corn silage alone. They also need hay.
Casimir doesn't grow hay. He buys it from Klamath and has no control over what he has to pay. Greg Zahner has been delivering hay to Casimir and other farmers around the state from the Klamath Basin for years, and he says the drought is hiking the price.
Well, this is probably the worst case of drought and lack of water that I have ever seen.
He says he thinks price for hay might be going up by $20 to $40 a ton. And for Casimir, a $40 per ton increase on 60 tons of hay a week means an additional $9,600 expense each month. So if farmers want to protect their crops and combat cyclical droughts, James Cassidy, a crop and soil instructor at OSU, says to get life from your soil, you should give life to your soil.
Maintaining organic matter levels is probably the most important job in agriculture.
Casimir is apparently on the right track. Cassidy says adding organic matter like microbes, compost, and other living organisms can increase soil's water holding capacity, making life or crops possible in drought. Cassidy said that's because organic matter can hold up to 80 times its weight in water, even in hot, dry summers. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, 1% organic matter in just the top 6 inches of soil can hold 27,000 gallons of water per acre. Cassidy, who started an organic soil project 17 years ago, says he's seen a difference in the soil from when he first began the project to now.
It used to be very difficult to keep water in that soil, so we had to water more often. And now, I really don't. I just have a couple of drip lines and it's enough.
He did say, however, that the 1% increase isn't easy. It takes time to transform soil into healthy soil. It's not an overnight job, but it is a job that could help in the long term. Reporting for Oregon News, I'm Mark Grandy.
Got a quarter?
I'll never forget the day our landlord called and said, read your lease. No pets allowed. My owner tells him my dog ate the lease, but that didn't work. And now I'm stuck in a shelter. But this pit bull is ready for a new crib. I'm loving, loyal, and play well with others. So don't be intimidated by all my muscles, because the biggest one I have is my heart. That's right, I said it.
Wolves have been back in Oregon for nearly 30 years, but there is a growing debate about their presence here in Oregon. Savannah, what's this debate about, and who's even debating?
There's two main voices to the debate: ranchers and environmentalists. Both parties are trying to figure out how to coexist with wolves.
In the late 1990s, wolves were reintroduced to the state of Oregon. Since then, ranchers have dealt with losing livestock to the wolves. Barry and Sheila Del Curto are two of those ranchers. Recently, one of their steers was attacked by a wolf.
See those? Those are teeth marks and where they scraped him. And there was you can't see them hardly now, but there was puncture marks and stuff all along that. And then the more we got to clipping, we could see more. He's got infection down in that eye. Mm-hmm. The flies aren't blowing him, so I keep fly spray on him.
The Del Curtos are not the only ranchers who have had problems with the wolves. According to the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife's annual report, in 2017, the state conducted 66 wolf depredation investigations in 11 Oregon counties. That is 66 reports of a wolf attack, but only 17 have been confirmed. Ranchers don't think the state is doing enough to protect their livestock, but environmental groups advocate for the wolves and want to see them protected. One of those groups is Oregon Wild, the state's largest and oldest conservation organization. Wildlife Program Coordinator for Oregon Wild, Danielle Moser, says that it is important to celebrate the rising wolf population.
Just like the bald eagle is very American, I would say also so is the wolf, and so it's exciting to get to tell the story of their return. So that's one of the reasons I care about it.
When asked about the public perception of wolves, Moser says that a lot of the negative attitudes are due to preconceived notions about wolves.
It's still a learning process. I think, if you think about even like childhood fables, they're so rooted in like wolves being big, bad, and scary. And I think we actually see that play out in a lot of people's minds, whether they're consciously thinking about that or not. So I think there's room for people to change and to just learn more to the fact that wolves aren't scary and they're actually really important on the landscape. So we're doing our best to try to tell that story in a very positive way, so as to bring people along. But yeah, not everyone's going to be where we are on wolves for sure, but at least for people to feel comfortable that we can do coexistence. You can have a booming agriculture and livestock sector in addition to having this native carnivore on the landscape.
But one rancher disagrees. Tom Berkmeyer lives in Wallowa County and says the wolves put too much pressure on his family and him.
And I believe in trying just as hard as I can to save and take care of every single animal. And with the wolves being allowed to be here and chase and really not be controlled, the numbers continually increasing, it's just very stressful on me and my family, and it causes me much more work, which is less time with family. And it's just been devastating. Had one fellow rancher I know had a cow that was real close to calving, and the wolves, I don't know if she was maybe starting to calve, but I know that they pulled the calf out of her, ate the calf, ate her uterus, and she was left still alive when she was found the next day. So I don't know how it can get more ruthless and brutal than that.
Some ranchers have taken it upon themselves to protect their livestock by shooting the wolves. Oregon rancher B.J. Warnock was one of the first legal shooters in Oregon. He shot and wounded a wolf last summer when he saw it chewing on his cow.
The wolves are actively chewing on that cow and trying to get her calf. And so that's when I got confirmation that was perfectly legal to shoot that wolf, because it was an act of chewing and biting, harassing the cow. So that to me is a huge step in the right direction, as far as we have to at least be able to defend them when they're in the act of harassing or chewing or killing a cow.
The Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife issued a wolf management plan in 2017, which now rules all wolf-related activities. It is separated into phases based on how many breeding pairs of wolves are present in a given area. In all phases, it is legal to take lethal actions against a wolf who is in the act of attacking livestock. For now, the Wolf Management Plan is the only legal document in the wolf livestock altercation. Reporting for Oregon News, this is Savannah Sear.
Speaking of livestock, some people across the country have beef with data centers who are moving into their communities because of the environmental impact. But that's not the case here in Oregon. Reporter Kylie DeVries is in Crook County with more on the subject.
With the spread of technology advancements over the years, large internet tech companies are expanding data centers in places throughout the United States, such as in Washington and California, which have experienced much criticism in the past. But for one small community in Oregon, that isn't the case. That's Prineville, which just a couple decades ago was living a bright era due to their mill-based economy. But a combination of those mills going out of business and a nationwide recession, unemployment rates had skyrocketed. But all that changed with the arrival of Facebook and Apple's data centers. Seth Crawford, local county judge, says one of the biggest reasons this town was chosen was because of its climate.
And then that's really the biggest cost when you have a data center is cooling the heat that's produced by those servers.
Unlike other areas, Prineville enjoys unusually cool summer nights, with average low temperatures hovering in the 50s. That cold air can be used to cool down the centers during the night and help maintain the coolness during the day. Other factors, such as affordable power, cheap land, and access to a regional airport also came into play when these companies decided where to locate its data centers. It also doesn't hurt that Prineville gave the centers tax breaks. For 15 years, Facebook and Apple won't pay any property taxes. And so far, Prineville's efforts to attract the data centers appears to be paying off for the community. Even those who don't like the tax breaks say the server farms have been financially beneficial. The companies are awarding grants for local schools, businesses, infrastructure improvements, and they are providing job opportunities. And for most community members, it is enough. Prineville yard manager Travis Gardner says his business, Par Lumber, has indirectly benefited.
They try to use local people as much as they can, but again, a small town, there's only so many trades here that they can utilize. So a lot of contractors from Portland or other areas throughout Oregon and other states, as they are awarded the jobs, they come to Prineville to work on them, and then they look for the supplier, and we're here.
But for others, there could be more benefits. Steve Lent, historian at the Prineville Bowman Museum, has lived in Prineville for 68 years.
We did have the highest unemployment rate in the state, particularly after all of the sawmills went out of operation, because that was our major economy. As far as raising jobs for through the data centers, there really isn't that many jobs that they provide. They are amongst the very highest paying jobs, but they aren't very numerous. So it doesn't affect the entire community.
But Crawford points out that isn't entirely true.
They're right around 300 jobs at Facebook, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you look at our population compared to like the Portland metro area, we have about 26,000 people in Crook County. The Portland metro area has about 2.6 million people, and if you equal those jobs out, that's about 30,000 jobs. So really, per capita, they've brought a lot of employment to our community.
And Garner says things have just been getting better.
I have a hope for the future, especially in a small town. There's every little bit counts. So just the stability that the data centers bring with the job base, a new economic opportunity that we didn't have before.
So far, the changes have been welcome. With the population in Crook County growing at a rate of nearly 5%, Prineville may soon boast a population of 10,000 people. According to Eloise Brummer, the docent at the Bowman Museum, that may spell some welcome changes for the community.
I'd like to see like a Fred Meyer or a Safeway or, I don't know, have JCPenney come back because it did used to be here.
Reporting for Oregon News, I'm Kylie DeVries.
Thanks for watching the finale of Oregon News Extra. Enjoy your summer. We'll see you next year.
Driving up and down the lane, driving ourselves insane. Why don't we go for a ride tonight? Past the Shakespeare Bridge, all along the
I've heard.